It's a geographic isolate of a very wide-ranging species. The species itself ranges from southern Alaska into Idaho and down into Oregon and then into the Sierras and the Klamath Mountains. And then there's this small little population in Santa Cruz. And so what people think is that it was once a very kind of wide-ranging species, and then recently it's gone some kind of range contraction. And if you lose this population, then you lose all this unique genetics that is evolved here. Things to be associated with warm ponds that are, that are there at a different time of the year, right? So the breeding biology is completely different. So for the health of the species, it wouldn't affect it because it's not even connected. But, you would lose something special. A lot of people would probably say that if this population existed for long enough, it would eventually turn into a new species because it's not exchanging genes with the rest of the population and the selection pressures are very different. So given enough time, it would probably become genetically incompatible. But its whole range is crisscrossed with roads and developments, and there's probably only about 6 essentially conglomerates of ponds that they breed in here, and each one of those is separated by roads and developments. So even here in Santa Cruz, there's no migration between breeding sites.
We worry that the ponds, which the salamanders rely on so heavily to breed in, could get infested by a water hyacinth or something like that, and the pond would completely change in its ecology. So invasive species, land conversion projects like the Highway 1 widening and things like that, conversion over to agriculture. I always tell people they're not panda bears. So it's a species that has fairly high rates of reproduction. One pair can create something like 240 eggs in one season. One female can produce that many. The vast majority, of course, don't live, but with some mostly land protection measures, the prognosis is pretty good for the salamander. Unfortunately, protecting land is hard to do. The refuge manager was able to attract funding to get the pond engineered correctly by a geotechnical engineer and get all the permitting in place. And then we eventually built the pond. That first year, we had California tiger salamanders in that pond breeding. The second year, we had Santa Cruz long-toed. The third year, we had both, which had never been documented ever in Santa Cruz County and in the world, actually. So that was a really, really big win. We showed that we could build a pond that would work. It's hard to gauge what the effects could be or would be. Obviously, the amount of carbon in these forests isn't going to, change that drastically to alter human history or anything that grand. But a species, who are we to allow the eradication or the extinction of a species that we caused?